Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, a World Alternative Media here, and of course we are joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen. Now, we are coming up on March 15th, 2017, where they will be trying to figure out what to do with the debt ceiling. I have to put it out there, debt jubilee, right? Am I right? But of course that's not going to happen. So John, what do you think is going to happen here?
Well, I think they need to learn from the heroin addicts. When you are a heroin addict, you want more and more heroin, right? So you just got to raise that debt ceiling and make sure you get more debt,
absolutely,
so you can print more money.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like buying a house with very little money, and then just every time they come to collect, you just raise the amount of debt a little bit higher, a little bit higher, a little bit higher, and tell them, well, actually, go get the money off of my neighbors because I'm not going to pay it. Just keep rising that ceiling, right? It's insane.
And there's another analogy to this as well. Like, let's say that you get a credit card, okay? So you get a credit card, it has a ceiling on it, right? Look at that ceiling. So you max out your credit card. Well, how are we going to pay off that credit card because you don't have any money? Mm-hmm. That's what the government is, right? So they don't really have any money to pay that money off. So you just got to get a new credit card, and then you have to continue to pay whatever interest is on that until that is maxed out. So it's just like a continuous cycle and getting into more and more credit.
A bit more of a complicated analogy, but nonetheless, absolutely.
No, but anyways, this is serious stuff because we're looking at, of course, another debt ceiling crisis. And just embrace yourself because this one is going to be, I think, even worse, way worse than the other ones because, of course, you had Obama had one. But in 1995 was the first one when, of course, the Congress really had some hard struggles and they tried to, raise the debt ceiling. Now, it has happened more recently in later years. In 2011, of course, they had huge debt crises. After 2008, they had to raise the debt ceiling substantially, in order to survive and not go bankrupt. Because that's what it is. The debt ceiling is that limit that they can't borrow anymore. You're bankrupt. Now, in 2013, they had another one, of course, where I don't know if you remember how they literally had like armed guards protecting, the monuments, the national parks, and so on. And it's really funny how, they used these guards that were actually paid more than it cost to run the government national park in the first place to protect it.
Protect the war memorials from being seen by veterans. Oh, those evil veterans, those 90-year-old veterans from World War II dared to want to actually look at a war memorial. Nope, not allowed. Closed for business. The government is shut down, quote unquote.
Yeah, the guys that actually stopped idiots like these collectivists that are running the place right now from, gaining the ultimate power of one world government that they wanted back in the day with Hitler and so on. This really infuriates me because what's happening here is they just think that they could spend more and more money. They don't care about the taxpayers. They just want to, be on that bench, being able to be that political elite, living in that nice house and so on. Like, that's what it's all about. It's all about their having their lifestyle sustained, and driving around those nice cars and so on. Like, look at, for example, Trudeau and his new government. They bought a whole bunch of fancy cars to themselves, and they're, of course, running a massive deficit. Now we'll see where that's going to end. And on March 15th, 2017, they, of course, have suspended the debt ceiling until then. Of course, this was Obama back in the day in October 30th, 2015, when he did this. He suspended it because, they wanted to spend a whole bunch of money and they didn't want to have that debt ceiling, stopping them from doing so. So they just suspended it, and that basically means you're allowed to, go into as much debt as you want, which is insane. Like, you just look at, I'll just tell you what the first debt ceiling was just before I let you get ripping at this stupid idea of what they're doing here. Now, the first debt ceiling was instated in June 25th of 1940. Now, think about how far this has gone with the debt and what they've accumulated. Like, you get mind-boggled. Now, it was $49 billion at the point. And this was, of course, before the war, so there was a lot of money spent throughout the war, and then it stayed stable for about 20 years. But today, of course, the current debt ceiling was at 18 trillion and 113 billions. So right now, of course, we're right around the $20 trillion mark, and just look at that 49, billion that they had initially, and this is, of course, when you print money and becomes less and less worth, and that's why they have to get into so much debt.
Well, I mean, as we've talked about so many times before, when you print fiat currency out of thin air, you create debt and devaluation and inflation. And this debt is a huge part of it because it affects every individual that's living in the United States and elsewhere. When their country goes into debt, it affects their ability to pay for food. It affects their ability to work a steady job and be able to afford the roof over their heads. So I think that it's really important that we kind of explain to people how this will directly affect them, because this debt ceiling, we've heard this before, we've seen it before, and it continues to develop, and nothing is being done. And unfortunately, the economy hasn't crashed yet, so this momentum is being pushed to the top, and it's going to explode. How is this going to affect individuals the most?
Well, first of all, the reason why they were able to get into this substantial amount of debt was that they actually had people that were willing to buy that debt. That doesn't exist anymore. The Fed sits on trillions of dollars of U.S. bonds that they bought themselves. Like, they basically create them and then they buy them themselves.
Yeah.
So there's nobody really actually wanting to buy the United States debt at all. So now they have to accumulate it themselves. They literally create it and then buy it themselves, which doesn't make sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
Of course, through their quantitative easing program. And what's going to happen over time is that, over time, I think we've gotten to that time now where people are getting fed up with, the United States empire, and they're losing, the value that's the US dollar is, losing so much value. Now, you won't really see that it lost so much value. You might say that it's strong right now. It's not strong whatsoever. If you look at historical scale, it's dropped 99 point whatever percent,
practically
that is.
99.9.
Yeah, from its instatement. So the value is not there anymore. It's zero value, basically. But the thing is, everybody else is doing the same thing. All other countries around the world are running these deficits with their governments, and then they're just printing a whole bunch of money. I know Norway is, doing it. The European Union, Japan is just on a massive debt binge. They're the worst of them all because they have a collapsing population, so they don't get tax income.
We can't forget Venezuela.
Oh, Venezuela is a joke. And of course, we talked about how great of an investment the new issue of $5 billion or whatever it was in Venezuela bonds that came out. But that's what you see. Soon the United States dollar is going to be that joke, like Venezuela is currently. That they actually what is the point of even issuing debt when everybody knows that you're not going to ever pay back? And we know that the United States is never going to pay back. We know that Canada is never going to pay their debt back. If they were to, they would have to raise taxes to 90%, guys. And that's what could happen if we let this go on, because the future generations, we're not really talking future generations now. We're talking very soon. Things are going to have to happen if we want to stay in this paradigm. Your taxes are going to raise massive and substantially in order to just be able to sustain this failing government.
Now the question is, will we see this end up with a special drawing rights currency, or will we see it go the other way and see possibly a debt jubilee? I mean, that is a question, and I think that largely is up to you, the individual, educating yourself on these subjects and being loud enough voices. We need enough people to understand this very simple issue that's made complicated by those in the economics field, those of the academics at the universities that make things as difficult sounding as possible. These terms, this lingo that's obsessively complex when it doesn't need to be. These are very simple issues that it's enough to numb your brain listening to some of the economic and bureaucratic talk regarding it.
Believe me, I've been reading a lot of it lately, and I afterward you just want to literally run your head right into a brick wall because it's so stupid.
Well, you may as well be reading it. I mean, that's basically what you're doing.
But of course, I like to see what's in their stupid heads.
Yeah, like I said, know your enemy. Absolutely.
Yeah, know your enemy, of course. But the thing is here, we're staring at the debt bubble of massive proportions. The global debt is soon hitting 70 trillion. Of course, all these derivatives and all these these, excesses of other debt and, fake money that's out there, like derivatives, like 4 quadrillion, some people are looking at it right now. It's so unsustainable that it has to collapse soon. Like, I can't see how it's going to sustain itself for very much longer, because there's not only that bubble, the stock, like, it's bubbles everywhere. Like, it's just mass amounts of printing of money. That's their only solution now, because, populations are starting to, like, level out, and the only way that governments can make money is on increased revenue through, of course, the increased population and taxpayers, and that's not going to happen anymore. So they're stuck with Venezuela. They have to print money now.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's quickly wrap this up by talking about the solutions that we have. So there are many different ways that you can get around this as an individual that doesn't have power over the monetary system. I mean, if it were a free monetary system and a free market, you would have some say. But obviously, with the level of manipulation and just the artificial systems that we have to deal with today, you don't have much of a say over the overall system. However, you do have a lot of say in what you do with your own wealth, what you do to insure yourself, and what you do to break free from this paradigm to the most extent that you possibly can. Yeah. So let's go into quickly how people can insure their wealth with things like gold and silver and sound money.
Well, first of all, like, looking at the historical scale, gold and silver has the best track record of anything that we used for money in exchange in history. So I really trust history. Yeah. First of all, so and I don't think, even with a digitalization that's coming, I don't think we're gonna see a move away completely from gold and silver, like precious metals.
That preserved value has existed forever, and gold is created when supernovas happen. So you don't have that much gold in the universe except for when a sun explodes. So that's rare, and that creates a huge amount of demand.
Yeah, and of course, it's a fantastic metal that actually, like, all the gold still exists, that, like, you can't get rid of it, basically. So, like, it's just incredible of a metal that gold, of course, is, and we love silver as well because it's been used over, thousands of years as well.
And we talked about the gold-silver ratio, and silver definitely stands out above gold to a lot of large extent.
Yeah, large extent, because it's just off the whole pricing mechanism that's right now. And of course, look at Venezuela. Like, let's take a look at Venezuela, what's happening there. So if you're looking at a debt collapse, like a government collapse, you definitely want to protect yourself with food, water, have your necessities, like, make sure you have it for maybe half a year even, because who knows what's going to happen when everything starts to come down, because of course there's lots of people out there that are looking at, they want Trump to, really change things, but then, in my belief, and what I see, is everybody's working against him. I'm more worried about that they really want this, global government takeover.
Yeah, and there's still Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, and so that doesn't change that one of the biggest problems within the government is a financial system.
Yeah, that's the problem, is that the whole, like, Treasury is, the evil force that's, running the show. Not so much, the defense and all this stuff.
But they're connected to their globalist counterparts at the IMF and other places,
The ESF, for example, had the first initial seed funding to create the International Monetary Fund.
With the confiscation of gold.
Yeah, it was actually, they used the confiscated gold, the $2 billion worth of gold that they had at the time, to have as seed money, together with a whole bunch of other people, to create the International Monetary Fund and this whole apparatus that the United Nations had taken under their wing as their monetary system.
And at first, the Exchange Stabilization Fund. And moving on from that, because this is a great way to get into another thing that people can do to save themselves, is keep your money out of the bank. So, for example, if your money's in the bank, it's not yours, it's the bank's. And I'd say private vaults are probably the best thing. Now, I have to, for legal reasons, say that this is my opinion, and I'm not giving you sound monetary advice, but this is just you don't need a large education to understand.
Just go and look what if you live in a G20 country, like, it's automatic that they're going to freeze your assets in the next crises. So you got to be prepared for this. And if you have your money in an electronic account, that money is frozen. You're not going to be able, like, look what happened in Greece and in Cyprus. We had so limited amount of money, access to money, and people like died there as well, especially in Greece.
Absolutely.
There's just been a massive turmoil, and of course in Venezuela and Argentina, like, there's just remnants of all these asset freezes and confiscations and devaluations of your value. So cash, of course, is another huge thing, but then, of course, Bitcoin, like cryptocurrencies.
That's what I wanted to get into next,
Yeah.
because this is something that's been exciting me a lot lately, is I've really got into Bitcoin. I'm kicking myself for my doubts about it back in 2013, and people told me to get into it. I would be a rich man today if I put money into it. But the point is, it is continuously rising. We had this recent ETF decision that went bad, but it's already came back from the fall. It's minor fall over the last week, and we're looking at a large rise in Bitcoin. And cryptocurrency, we're talking about blockchain here, so we're not talking about cashless centralized, we're talking about cashless decentralized, which is so important to make that differentiation.
Huge difference, yeah.
Absolutely. So I would say that it would be good for people to put a bit of their money into Bitcoin, a bit of their money into gold and silver, stuff like that. Again, my opinion, not sound monetary advice, but
I would say like the three
want.
G's, as Robert Kiyosaki says: guns, grub, and gold.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't eat gold, but you can't really take it out of the equation when you think of the things that you do need to survive in a revolution or an economic crash. So there's food and water, there's shelter, then of course there's defense, and then there's sound money. And you take one of those things away, and the rest can fall like a domino, because you take the guns away, and you're gathering things for the toughest guy on the block. You take the gold and silver away, and unless you hunt really well and can provide for your whole family, or you can grow a crop in one day, you're going to need to buy food instead of killing people for food or stealing it. So let's just be realistic here. Sound money is very important.
Yeah. Well, sound money, actually, what happened during hyperinflation, and I have first account with actually talking to people that had gold and silver, or they knew people that had gold and silver. They said like they were ultra wealthy after the end of a hyperinflationary era because they held the value. People were desperate to sell all assets. Asset prices were so depreciated, and they went and got nothing, like got assets for nothing.
Yeah, well, so there you have it. I mean, there's a whole bunch of solutions for you. We checked out the problem, we had a reaction, and we have a solution. And
Josh,
it's not
Hegelian.
Well, no, we're not, because I mean, this is the difference. The government
exactly.
always gives us problem, reaction, solution, repeat, and I'm giving us problem, reaction, and solution. End of story, period. The solution. Of course, there's always going to be problems in life, but we can do the best we can to survive and get away from this coercive system, which pushes us into debt like little slaves and pushes us off the cliff like a bunch of sheep. So thanks again for bringing us this information, John, and we will be back at you with much more. Check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated. And of course, check our address for Bitcoin below, as well as on the screen. You can scan the code. So thanks again, John, and we will be back at you with much more. This is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.